For those who don't know, I'll dive in quick. I used to do running in middle school, little in high school, fell out of it, got back into it in my 30s, about 11 years ago now. It's something that runs in my family. My grandfather was an Olympic caliber sprinter who only didn't go to the Olympics because of World War II. My uncle Steve became a marathon runner in his 50s and has run the Boston Marathon every year for, like the last 12, 13 years. And my cousin Keith is an elite level sprinter who's now trying to transition into a marathoner. So running is definitely in my blood. Like I said, I got back into it in my early 30s. I started slow, but then once kind of the muscle memory came around and I saw the improvements in my physique and I felt the improvements in my overall time and distance I could put in, I immediately turned to doing races. It began with a 5K race. And after I did a few of those, I amped up to half marathons and full. Over the years since I got back into running, I've had some great races, set a lot of personal bests, but I'm not here to brag, at least this time. What we're going to do now is I want to tell you the most embarrassing race story ever, and it coincides 10 years ago this week. I can't wait. This is one of my favorite stories to tell. This race took place January 14th, 2012. It was the Smutty Nose Palooza Half Marathon, which took place in Milford, New Hampshire. The big part of this was that it was an indoor half marathon. It took place at a spot called the Hampshire Hills Athletics Club Dome. It's now just known as the Hampshire Dome. And if you go to hampshiredome.com, you can see pictures inside what it looked like. I went to this race with another running friend, and for us to get to Milford, New Hampshire from Cape Cod, it was 2.5-hour drive. But the idea of running a half marathon indoors was very intriguing. So some of the things that made it unique were the fact, A, it was indoors, in a dome. There was a track that went around this dome, and in the middle of the track was a turf field where they would do youth sports, they would do boat shows, trade shows. One big advantage of it being an indoor half marathon was that there were only a certain number of people that could run it because it was an indoor track, so you couldn't have 200, 300, 400 people running a race indoors. It would just be impossible. I believe it was somewhere in the neighborhood of 50 runners, which still was a little crowded, but I mean, what are you going to do? Another big selling point of this race was Smutty Nose is a brewery, so after you ran the race, you were able to get a free beer. So it was like running for beer was pretty good, running indoors in the winter so you wouldn't get cold was good, and the limited number of participants, in my opinion, gave me a better chance of finishing higher up the list. Race day came, and the dome itself was a very unique setup. Everyone brought in their stuff. Basically, people would just leave their bags up near the front. You know, you would change into your running gear if you weren't in it already. And I wasn't going to drive to New Hampshire from Cape Cod in my running gear. So the race starts, gun goes off, we all start up. It's great. First thing right away, running outside in general, you can kind of pay attention to the scenery. You almost are distracted from the fact that you're running. When you're running a track indoors, there's not much to see. And in the middle of the field, I believe there was a soccer game going on, little kids playing, so that was interesting. But the thing is, to complete the half marathon, which is 13.1 miles, we had to run 68 laps around that track. 68. And they had a water stop at one point along the track, so if you needed water, you could stop there. And there was a timer, so you could see your time. You kind of got lost with as far as how many laps you were on, but you were just watching the time and getting kind of an idea where you were at. When you're running a race, if you don't have a running app, it's hard to know your pace. You need either Map My Run or a Garmin armband. Apple Watch probably does something like it. I'm running, it's probably middle of the pack, maybe slightly ahead of middle of the pack. I was feeling good. I'm guessing it must have been just over 5 miles into this race that suddenly my left calf cramps up. So I have to pull off the track, To get rid of a cramp, especially in the calf, you can use your knuckles as a deep tissue massage and kind of grind it out. It's not particularly fun, but it'll get the job done to get you continuing on. So the left calf was cramped up. I worked the cramp out as best I could and started on my way again. I had fallen off my pace somewhat, but whatever. I kept going. So now we're about 2 more miles in, so about 7 miles into this race, and I'm running, and here goes the right calf. So the right calf now cramps up. So it's deja vu. Pull off the track. People are passing me by. My friend I was running with, she saw me the second time, and I kind of just waved her on. I'm like, it's a cramp. I'll deal with it. I kneaded it out with my knuckles again and got back to running, continued on my way, slightly slower than before. So I'm going again. And this is where it gets great. I might have run another mile around the track, a few more laps. This time, though, the left calf had already gone, the right calf had already gone, and I was still going. This time, the left calf went, and it was like I fell to the ground on the track. It was like a sniper had shot me. I just went down. Both calves were done. And mind you, there's not that many people running this race, so it became real obvious. Like, I couldn't hide from the fact, like, everyone saw me go down. I had to crawl off the side of the track. They had someone who worked there. I don't know if they were a medic or anything. I'm sitting there, and the calf cramps were so bad that my muscles were twitching. It looked like I had a bunch of live snakes under my skin. It was painful as hell. I was done. I knew I was done. So rather than sit on the side of the track embarrassed, I crawled my way onto the turf field to a spot where nobody was playing or sitting, and I laid on my back there on the field with my calves just throbbing. I laid there for a while until I got over the PA system. They started announcing when people were starting their last laps. Knowing my friend was going to finish, I crawled my way back to the side of the track at the finish line so I could be there on my knees clapping as she crossed. Man, it was so bad. Eventually, I was able to get up and walk. I walked over to where the free beer was, and I hobbled there, and I got my free Smutty Nose beer. Now, remind you, I had run probably almost 11 miles and didn't stop at the water stop ever, so I was sufficiently dehydrated. I chugged down that beer because I was thirsty. The people behind the counter were kind of surprised. And then I explained to them what happened to me, that I wasn't able to finish because both my calves seized up and I fell down like an idiot. So they felt bad. They took pity on me and they gave me another beer, which I then chugged down again. So I walked away. I don't even think I changed into my other clothes. I just was sitting down next to my bag, just feeling the 2 beers just starting to seep into my system. My friend, she came over and she didn't laugh, but I mean, it was more or less like, yeah, that was pretty embarrassing. She went and got her free beer, but she didn't want it. So she handed that one off to me. So there's my third. And I chugged that down. And then to top it off, she went back up there. She didn't know that I had gotten an extra beer already, but she explained to them what had happened to me. They didn't know who I was. They didn't know that they had already double served me. So they gave her another beer to bring to me because they felt bad. So I had 4 beers in the span of about 10 minutes while dehydrated. So you know what happened there. I am just drunk off my ass and still in pain from my calf cramps, but the beer kind of helped out. I had to sit there and kind of stew in the booze while she went and showered and changed. Naturally, I was not in any shape to drive home from New Hampshire to Cape Cod, so she had to drive us home while I sat in the passenger seat singing different songs like Terribly. The topper came when I just started crying because I didn't finish the race. She was not, if she could have chucked me out the door on the way that we were driving, she probably would have. We stopped to get gas at one point, and she told me to fix her a protein shake to make myself useful because she was all set with my crying. And that was it. That was the most embarrassing race of my life. I didn't finish because of cramps, got drunk with the free beer and couldn't drive home and cried about it. So there you go. That was 10 years ago this week, and I tell you, if I could go and do it all over again, I would do it exactly the same, except maybe try to be hydrated and not get calf cramps.